All right, let's dive right into one of my absolute favorites, Asterix at the Olympic Games. We're going to break down the entire action-packed story from start to finish. And trust me, it's a wild ride full of Gaulish pride, a little bit of magic potion, and, believe it or not, some seriously clever psychological warfare.
So, right off the bat, you gotta love this. This is the Romans' idea of training for the Olympics. Feasting, lounging around with wine, the works. It really sets up the central question, doesn't it? How on earth could these lazy, pampered legionaries ever hope to compete against a village of Gauls who are, let's be honest, basically superheroes? But, and here's the real kicker, what happens when all that superpower suddenly gets taken off the table?
Part 1. A Gaulish challenge. Okay, so our story kicks off exactly where you'd expect. In that one tiny village of, you guessed it, indomitable Gauls. Their big secret to keeping the Romans at bay? Well, it all comes down to a magic potion cooked up by their druid.
But, that peace can never last for long. Word gets back from the Roman camp next door, Aquarium, that this really formidable athlete, a centurion named Gluteus Maximus, has been picked for the Olympics. Now, this news just lights a fire under the Gauls. I mean, the very idea of a Roman being called the world's greatest athlete? Oh no, that's just unacceptable. Their village pride goes into overdrive, and they decide they have to prove who's really superior, and they're going to do it on the world's biggest stage.
And of course, leading the charge is the one and only Chief Vital Statistics. He's proud, he's a bit portly, and he gets totally swept up in the demands of his villagers. So he gets up on his shield, the one carried by those two poor, long-suffering guys, and he makes this huge declaration. The Gauls are going to Olympia. They're sending their own champions, and they're going to show the whole world what real strength is all about.
So who are they going to send? Well, the choice is pretty obvious, right? For the brains and the strategy, it's gotta be our main man, Asterix. And for the brawn, we're talking pure, men-heart-tossing power. It's his best buddy, Obelix. But, this being the Gauls, things get a little out of hand. Why send just 2 people when you can send, well, everyone? The entire male population of the village decides they're coming too. 'Cause hey, there's a good fight and an even better feast on the horizon. Let's just say the road to Olympia is about to get real crowded.
Hey, if you're loving this breakdown of a classic story, it would be awesome if you could hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps us keep making more of these.
Okay, part 2, the road to Olympia. So, with the entire village tagging along, our heroes set off. Let's see how that goes.
So their trip across the sea is, well, it's exactly what you'd imagine a boat packed with super strong Gauls would be like. It is loud, it is chaotic, it is just pure mayhem. They're singing, they're arguing, and you just know they're going to run into those poor pirates and sink their ship just for tradition's sake. Subtlety is not in their vocabulary. This is basically a force of nature barreling towards Greece. And then they get there, and wow, just look at Olympia. It's absolutely breathtaking. You've got these gleaming white marble temples, huge stadiums cooking under the Greek sun, not to mention the massive statue of Zeus, one of the wonders of the ancient world. The air itself just feels important, It's thick with history and glory. And for maybe the first time ever, the Gauls are actually quiet, just stunned by how grand it all is.
And this right here just perfectly sums up the culture clash. Over here, you have the Romans, training, which means lying on couches and being fanned by servants. Then you have our Gauls. Obelix just strolls up, grabs a discus, and skips it across the stadium like a stone on a pond, completely shattering a statue. The other Gauls are just warming up, which means they're snapping javelins in half and bending solid metal starting blocks. They are absolutely terrifying every other athlete there. The Romans might be arrogant, but the Gauls, they're playing a whole different sport.
Okay, so victory seems like a sure thing, right? Wrong. They're about to hit a massive roadblock. This is the big twist, the heart of the story. No potions allowed.
So picture this. They're all signing up, getting registered, and an Olympic official stands up and makes this bombshell announcement. And this is a direct quote. All artificial stimulants are strictly forbidden. Just like that. The Gauls' biggest weapon, the very thing that makes them, well, them, is now illegal. It's officially considered cheating.
And boom, the mood just plummets. It's a total disaster. The Gauls are just crushed. Their dream of an easy win is completely gone. And get this, Obelix, since he fell in the cauldron as a baby, has the potion's effects permanently, so he's disqualified right off the bat. The only one left who can even compete is Asterix, using just his own natural ability. And you can bet the Romans hear all this and they start celebrating immediately. To them, the games are already won.
But wait, amidst all this panic and despair, there's one person who's completely calm. Getafix the Druid. Now, he's the guy who makes the potion, so he knows its power. But he also knows about other kinds of power. He just watches the Romans celebrating, and he gets this little glint in his eye, a small smile. You can just see the wheels turning. You know he's already cooking up a plan.
So everything has changed. The whole game is different now. For the Gauls, it all comes down to Asterix's natural speed and cleverness. The rest of the village can only cheer him on. But the Romans? They get lazy and super overconfident. They start spying, trying to bribe officials, the whole 9 yards. It's this classic matchup of honest-to-goodness effort versus straight-up cheating. And through it all, Getafix is just quietly watching.
All right, we are right at the halfway point, and things are really heating up. If you're enjoying this and want to see how Getafix's brilliant plan plays out, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It helps a ton. Okay, the stage is set. It's all been leading up to this. Part 4, the Great Olympic Race.
So let's really picture the scene here. The stadium air is just electric with tension. You can smell the dust kicked up from the track, that sort of hot ozone smell from the sun beating down. The athletes are at the starting line. And the sound, the roar of the crowd is just this deafening wall of noise. People from all over the world are here, screaming. Everything, absolutely everything, is riding on this one race.
And they're off. The athletes just explode from the starting line. At first, it's a pretty tight pack. But then, around the halfway mark, the Romans, who are looking way too energetic by the way, start pulling ahead. They just blow past Asterix. As they hit that final turn, Asterix is falling behind. But look closely. He's got this little knowing smile on his face. And then, it's over. The Romans cross the finish line, arms in the air, celebrating what looks like a total victory.
But hold on. This story is not over. Not by a long shot. Because this wasn't about who was strongest. This was a victory by wit.
This is where we get to see the real genius of Getafix. His whole philosophy is right here in this quote. A pinch of psychology is worth a cauldron of potion. He knew he couldn't beat them with muscle, so he decided to beat them with their own minds.
So what was this brilliant plan? Oh, it is a thing of beauty. Step 1, the bait. Getafix starts talking really loudly about how he's brewing a brand new magic potion, one that's totally tasteless and invisible. Of course, a Roman spy overhears this. Step 2, the spy reports back, and the Romans steal the potion. Except, it's not a potion at all. It's just soup. Step 3, the placebo effect. The Romans think they've taken a magic potion, so they run with amazing energy, convinced they're invincible. And finally, the brilliant final step, the disqualification. After the race, Getafix calls them out for cheating. The proof? He'd put a harmless blue dye in the soup, and every single Roman runner now has a bright blue tongue. Busted. They are all disqualified on the spot. So, with the entire Roman team out of the race, who's left? Yep, just one guy. Our hero, Asterix. By default, he is the only one still in the competition, which makes him the official Olympic champion. He gets the palm of victory, not because he was the fastest, but because he was the only one who played fair. And there you have it. That's how you win the Olympics with nothing but your wits. If you had fun on this trip to Olympia, please don't forget to like this explainer and subscribe so you don't miss whatever classic we break down next. So, our heroes head home. It wasn't the victory they expected, for sure, but maybe it was even better. It was a total triumph of Gaulish cleverness over Roman brute force. And you know how they celebrate, right? The only way they know how, with a gigantic village feast under the stars, complete with plenty of roasted wild boar. And really, what better way to end than with the most iconic line of all, from Obelix himself, probably shaking his head as he thinks about the whole crazy trip. It just sums everything up perfectly. These Romans are crazy.